Hey there, little mama. Let me tell you something. I have a treat for you today. I know that y'all, if you're around me very long, you know that I am all about traditional values, being a traditional mom, and just putting family first, and all the research that I've been doing. So you know what I've been thinking. Well, I got to tell you something. I'm thinking something really cool right now. We have a movement that is started in our country, and it's slowly gaining traction. And actually, I think it's becoming a wildfire. It is moms that are leaving work, leaving careers, leaving jobs, and they're going home to raise their kids. And they're becoming more involved with what their marriage is according to the biblical, what God says. So when I say authentic womanhood and I say biblical womanhood when I teach you, you know exactly what I mean. Well, I have a very special guest today that has done exactly that, and she's gotten some notoriety, and I'm super proud of her. So I'm going to bring her up in just a minute. So get ready to talk about the things that we love: marriage, home, and womanhood, all from God's point of view. So let's get to it. Welcome to the Moms Like Us podcast, where moms just like you learn strategies, systems, and skills through expert interviews and real-life insight designed to take your marriage, mothering, and home to the expert level. Hi, I'm Mona Corwin, your mom mentor and host, author, international speaker, and the founder of the Moms Like Us Academy. I've been coaching moms for over 25 years, and I have some really good news for you. Motherhood isn't a natural talent. It's a skill, and you can learn it. You can crush it at motherhood instead of motherhood crushing you. So let's get to today's show. All righty. My guest is her podcast, and her her Instagram page is called Feminine, Not Feminist. Don't you love it? I just love it because that's exactly what we are, right? And that is exactly what she has on there. And oh, my dogs just came in. Hi. The puppies are. Okay. So her name is Anneliese, and I am super excited for you to talk to her. And she has some really good perspectives, and I think that you're really going to enjoy it. And you may have questions, and if you do, I want you to DM me, and we will get them answered for you. But anyways, I'm going to bring Anneliese out of the green room right now and have her come and say hi. There you are. Oh, I've got to get me.
I'm on?
You're
Okay.
on. You're
Hi.
totally on. I'm
Hi.
making you go right.
I'm Anneliese, and like she said, I have the page Feminine, Not Feminist on Instagram, and I have my podcast, Feminine, Not Feminist podcast. And I'm a 25-year-old wife and mom. I have a 15-month-old, and I live in Arizona, and it's a beautiful state. And I like walking and baking and just all sorts of fun things like that. So not much else.
I know. And I love your braids. They look
Thank
so
you.
good. They look so good. I wear my hair in braids all the time. I just think they're so feminine,
They're
right?
style for like just, I don't know, for being a mom.
They are. They're perfect for being a mom. All right. So a couple years ago, you started an Instagram page and you called it Feminine, Not Feminist. Why don't you take us back to that time and tell us kind of the journey from there?
Yeah. So I started my Instagram page in June of 2020. And actually, my first handle before it was Feminine, Not Feminist was Radical Submission. And then I decided that was a little extreme.
Bless your heart.
That I thought maybe that's a little much. Um, and so I named it Feminine, Not Feminist. And I am not the first person to coin that term. I had seen that term kind of floating around, and I don't know who coined it to begin with, but no one had a really large or robust page dedicated to that theme. So I went ahead and made that my handle because it represents everything so succinctly. I want to be feminine. In other words, uh, living out my womanhood as God intended. And I don't want to be feminist. I don't want to subscribe or live according to this worldly social movement. And so the name just fit perfectly.
It sure did. And it grew. Like, I think you're at 140,000 right now, right?
More, almost 180,000.
Oh my
So,
gosh, girl. Oh my gosh. Well, that just shows you this is a movement. We are, like I have said before, I feel like I'm mothering a movement. We are, and we just need everybody to not be afraid to step up. And I'm really,
mhm.
really proud of you that you weren't afraid and you stood up, and you've done a really good job of communicating on the podcast you've been on and the things that you write on your Instagram. I've just been admired them and
Thank
going yay
you.
yay yay all the way for you. How
Thank
did
you.
you get to this point? Like, were you like this in high school? Is this like the way your family grew up? Like, what's the history that you
Yeah,
came
I've
to
always
fall in
kind
love
of,
with traditional stuff?
yeah, I would say I didn't actually picture myself growing up and getting married and having a family. That was not what I envisioned growing up. Not necessarily because I had a feminist mindset, but just because, you know, that part of me wasn't awakened, I guess. And so I didn't envision myself growing up, getting married, having a family. But when I met my husband, it was completely understood that, like, if we got married, I would stay home with the kids. Even if we didn't have kids, probably still stay home and be a stay home wife. Like, we just immediately agreed on that. And so, like, it wasn't even a conversation. And I think part of that is his mom stayed home, my mom stayed home. My mom did get a job later on when we were a little bit older, but the majority of our childhoods, she was a stay at home mom. So that was my paradigm. And I saw like the fruit of that. And I knew that I would want to be home with my children. So,
So were y'all just like out to dinner one night and you just started talking about the future? And then he just
well,
said, well, this could be a deal breaker. Like, what did he
but
say?
I think what it was because the first time we talked, when we told each other we liked each other, we immediately, he was like, how many kids do you want? And we just kind of
Oh,
went through
he's
all
ready
those
to go.
questions. And I think shortly after that, we had a conversation of, you want to homeschool? I want to homeschool. Okay, we're home. Like, it wasn't even a debate that we even had to broach. It was just completely, those were the values that we were both aligned on, which I praise God for. That's never been an argument or even a discussion.
Yeah, that's
So,
great because you live in Arizona, which is a liberal area, right?
it is, yes, where I live is near Phoenix, and Phoenix is, the rural Arizona is much more conservative.
Gotcha.
Um, but I will say Arizona is still, it's purple at this point. It's not really red, it's not really blue. So, yeah.
So you decided to get married, and how? So you obviously stayed home as a stay-at-home wife before you had the baby, right?
I worked, so we didn't have our son until, oh, how many years had we been married? 3.5 years of marriage. So I had a while where I was just, I was working, but then we wanted me to be a stay-at-home wife, and we were working financially towards that. And so by the time my son came, I was down to like 5-10 hours a week. So I slowly was kind of like weaning off of work because that was the lifestyle that we wanted. And it was a really great setup because I was working at a coffee shop and doing like some online stuff. And so I was working 10, 15 hours a week and still had plenty of time to be a keeper of the home. And that was a great arrangement. And then now I do some stuff with social media from home, but
Right.
I'm a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. And what a wonderful thing to be.
I love
I
it.
stayed home with my kids when Brett was born. I said, okay, I'm gonna stay home for 6 months and then we'll see. I never went back. I'm like, no way. Am I letting someone,
Oh,
like, there isn't anybody that can do this better than me? Duh.
no. And I just, I never understood, when women would say they just want to get away from their kids because from the very beginning, I just always want to be with my kid. And
Yeah,
so I
I
just
don't
can't
blame you.
imagine, being away from, like, the longest I've been away was, I think it was 5 hours. And that was just really hard. I
Yeah,
was filming something and I was like, I am so ready to be back with my kid.
yeah.
So,
And that's, I mean, that's something that God puts inside of us. And it's
mhm.
one of those things that men don't understand. And it's because, like, we don't understand what it is to want to beat people up that are going to hurt your family, you know? They're
Right.
right. The lead, feed, protect, and provide. We don't get that, but they don't get that when our children are away from us, we have a sense of sorrow. You
Yeah.
know, it really is part of the curse from it's a curse and a blessing from Genesis that said
Mhm.
you're going to have pain in childbirth. Well, it
Mhm.
doesn't just mean that day, because
Right.
even today I crave and mourn for my children more than my husband does. He's learned that that's just the beautiful thing about being a woman and being feminine,
Yeah.
and to embrace that and not go, oh, you know, that's
I just need to suppress that. No,
yeah,
it's yeah.
kids are just an accessory. You know, I've got the house,
Right.
the car, the husband. You know, now I got the kid, and here we go. I'm going to keep my career, and here I go. I think the feminist movement is had some backfiring going on there. So when I started really researching feminism and biblical womanhood, I went out on the street because I love to find out what
Mhm.
people think. Like, I might be the only one. In that case, I just need to go home. But if I can help somebody, let's do that. And I started asking, it was about 2000, oh, I don't know, it doesn't matter. I started asking, what is femininity?
Okay,
And
great question.
oh my goodness, ribbons, feminine clothing, long curly hair, braids, like they only were doing aesthetics, like what we were talking about earlier when we were
Yeah.
just visiting. How would you define the feminine?
Mhm. Yeah, I think I've described it on my page before as it's my heritage as a woman. And so it's not something that I um like it's a paradox because in one sense it's like it's not something that I can like put on or take off, right? Like I am feminine. I am a woman and that is something no one can take from me because it's my heritage. At the same time, I can also lean into that. And so I've noticed like just as the way I described it in my page is you begin to learn a little bit what femininity is when you stop fighting the fact that you're a woman. When you truly embrace God made me this way and this isn't a flaw. He made me and he said it was good. And when I stopped
Very good.
fighting,
He said it was very good.
very good, very good. And when I stopped like fighting the fact that I was a woman, just embracing that, not wanting to be like a man, I began to embody more culturally feminine things, but not as a way of putting on a costume, but just as a way of simply just enjoying all these beautiful things that come along with womanhood. So I think that you can define femininity both as like it's a state of being, but there's also characteristics that are distinctly feminine that we can lean into, or we can choose to not lean into. That's yeah.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. How old do you think you were were you already married when you were going through this change?
It's been a long process. So I when I was younger, like high school, I definitely had some feelings of like not wanting to be a woman. No, it wasn't like gender confusion or anything like
No, I
that.
get it. I get it.
No, yeah, it,
I
it
get
definitely
it.
wasn't that. It
We don't
was
have to go
totally
there.
just like not really seeing like the benefit or the joy there. Just
Mm,
like, I don't know, like I wouldn't call myself a tomboy, but um wasn't, yeah, I didn't quite, I wasn't embracing it. And then, I got married, and I would say I actually look at photos sometimes from early marriage, and I'm like, yeah, I really wasn't like embracing my femininity at that time. And what I noticed is it really took having my son. That was a time of just embracing my womanhood. Like, before I had my son, I was very, I had embraced the wifely role, but I definitely had some turmoil when it came to the idea of motherhood. I wanted to be a mother, but at the same time, I just was, it it produced a very deeply uncomfortable feeling just to like think about me as a mother. But then giving birth, having my son, I had a very beautiful birth experience. And it was just kind of this time of surrender. And I look back on that as like, wow, I just kind of let go, and like, I'm a woman. So it's not like a flip switch. It had been a slow progression, and I
mm,
still am like, I'm actually at this point where I'm like, I feel like I'm finally finding my style as a woman, and that's really fun because I look back at old photos, and I was just walking around in like, you know, uh, basketball shorts and t-shirts, and I wasn't really like enjoying dresses and things like that. And now I'm just like, I'm learning how to sew. Like, I feel like I'm just like discovering myself as a woman in this very fun way, like wearing things I like, wearing ruffles. And anyway, it's been fun.
Well, it actually is biological. It is biological and scientific because the hormones that come when you're pregnant lend themselves to more feminine things, and also the
Wow.
oxytocin from having a baby. And if you nursed, then it's all the
Mhm.
more. It's that bonding that takes place, and then a woman, like I know you've heard the phrase, "Oh, she's nesting," right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, God made us this way. We
Yeah.
we like get these hormones, and it is within that hormonal thing that all of a sudden we start seeing the things of who we really are. It
Well, that's really interesting because I've been nursing for 15 months now,
There you go,
and I
oxytocin.
feel like I'm just getting girlier and girlier.
You don't have pink on. Oh, I have blue on too. I
Yes, it's
you
like a linen
There
dress.
you go. Well, my man, we've known each other. Well, our my listeners already know this, but uh, we met in high school.
Okay.
And so he has always liked me in denim and pearls. And
Okay.
so when he came in tonight, he's like, "Oh, you got dressed up for me." And I'm like, "Well, kind of. I'm going to be talking to a real sweet girl."
But also for him.
But I mean, it's also part of what he likes
Yeah.
that helps me kind of guide me in what he likes and what makes him to please him. I sure hope you enjoyed this episode of Moms Like Us Do Things Like This. Sweetheart, we have so much more over on the website Moms Like Us, and we also are on Instagram at Moms Like Us __, and you can just join us over there to learn why we should know what we should know, what we should know. But I have got a little special thing that we have in the Moms Like Us world. It's called the Moms Like Us Academy, and I hope you'll consider it. You can find out more about it on the momslikeus.org website, but it is full of masterclasses that teach you how. Because, girl, motherhood isn't a natural talent. It's a skill, and you can learn it. But to learn it, you have to know how. And that's where we do it. That's where moms just like us, moms just like you, we make it happen. So I hope that you will go over and join us in the Moms Like Us Academy. Okay, that's it. Bye for now.